to the FootyNotes with Bonisile channel over here. Have a few things I'll be talking about just as the preseason wraps up. I noticed quite a few things over the last couple of weeks, and just going to be sharing some thoughts. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and share, subscribe, all the things. So the one thing that I wanted to start with at the top of this program today is preseason, whether it matters or not. Obviously, everybody takes a different dial on the topic. My view is it does matter, but I think sometimes people, what they think matters will be driven based on, I guess, maybe how you feel about your club, how strong you thought they were before, the season before, leading to the preseason, what signings they've made, and how happy you are with maybe the general direction of the team under your current manager. I'm an Arsenal fan. I happen to think Mikel Arteta has done a good job making us competitive more than one time. I'm gutted and disappointed when we don't win, and obviously the last 3 seasons have been tough, but we've had tougher times. And so for me, when I watch preseason, I don't know if this is shaded by the fact that I used to play and I've coached and worked with youth quite a bit in sports. So for me, preseason is about preparing the athletes to get in shape for the real time. For example, in the case of the Premier League starting this weekend. So for me, I wasn't looking at the results. Even when we win games, I wasn't really looking at the results. I was trying to see what's the condition of the players as I was watching most of Arsenal's games in this preseason. I was looking at whether there'll be new tactical tweaks. Yes, I didn't see any of that. But I also, because my mileage is quite high on Arteta's ability to coach, and the fact that we lost Cuesta and we were signing a lot of new players, I thought there'll be an adjustment period. And so we were probably likely to see a lot of the same things before we started to see new things. But I also wasn't expecting him, Arteta, being the person I'm talking about right now, to show his hand so early, so that other teams can maybe prepare for, his new idea of how he wants Arsenal to play. Now, in the game against Athletic Club Bilbao, we saw some things there that maybe, some scouts for Manchester United will probably look at and be like, okay, how do we prepare for some of this, and how do we not, leave ourselves vulnerable, but at least he's left them with a week rather than weeks of, looking at the tape and preparing for that first game. But I do think, yeah, it matters on one end and it doesn't matter on the other end. And I'm of the view that it matters if, as long as you have your players in the right level of condition to go into the season, and they understand your tactical ideas and the little things you want to do that are fresh, in addition to the things, holding on to the things that made you good before. Some people were hoping to see maybe drastic change, and this is probably driven by whether you think the team was good or not, right? Like, I think we weren't really good last year, but I think the context spoke to the reason why we were as bad as some people thought we were last season. I think we were good considering where we have been, but we were not at the level that I would have liked to see us be. But I understood. You don't lose Saka, Havertz, Odegaard, Gabriel, all of them for stretches, even Martinelli for a degree of time. And, I'm sure all clubs go through injuries, so I'm not trying to make excuses. But to finish second after all of those injuries to those players, and then a lot of cluster injuries in defense and in the front line especially, I think they did okay. I'm not happy about the results of the season, but I also would be disingenuous if I thought the club and the players especially could have done better than what they ended up doing. Now, the other thing that I was happy about, like in the preseason view of watching Arsenal is Martin Zubimendi. I mean, everybody's spoken about him. I'm not going to go too long on him, but for me, what I like about him is he makes a quick decision. He sees the game really early, and he's able to also execute with his feet very quickly what he sees. And that means, he doesn't like labor on the ball. He sends it through really fast, and so like that's also gonna lead to the guys off the ball being on their toes, running off the ball a little bit quicker because they know they're gonna get the ball. Once it goes to Martin, it's gonna go. Sometimes when you're playing with a midfielder or a deep lying player who you don't trust, you wait till they make the pass because you don't want to be, worried that if they lose the ball, you've gone for the run. You got to be thinking again in defense in that situation. But with Martin, like he's so safe on the ball, but he's not so safe that he's risk averse. He's safe that he's not likely to lose it. But when he does get it, he punches it out like really early, on time, on target, off you go. And when you have an addition, speaking of another signing, that started at centre forward in this last two games, Victor Gyökeres, he is another player who kind of like sends messages with his running off the ball. So like I'm happy to see like the fact that we have two players up the spine of the team who are new, who are giving us a little bit different and sometimes a lot different to what we've seen from previous players who played in that position. And I like both players in Havertz and Partey who played in those two positions last season and the season before. I think Havertz, people have forgotten how good he was when he was available. I think he was really good as a nine in the last season and a half, because we lost him like early February at Newcastle. But before that, he was, and I think he might have still finished the season last year as our top scorer. So I think Havertz, Partey were good, but these two guys are really big improvements. And another player that I think, like I think Havertz will get a lot of game time, by the way. But another player I want to talk about briefly that I saw in preseason is Christian Mosquera. I think he, for a kid who's only just about 21, he's so like reassuring when he comes on. He's got a calm demeanor, but he's very aggressive on the tackle. He's really good on the ball, and I like that he's able to carry as well. So he can carry, he can mix it up. He's got a good pass on him, and he's not shy on the tackle. So like he's got the early signs of a good cover center back. I expect him to get a decent amount of game time, maybe 15 games in the league by say February or so, maybe. I think he'll get a lot of like substitute appearances, but if there's an injury to either Gabriel or Saliba, I think he gets more minutes than Kiwior. Even though I do think Kiwior is a good player, I think Mosquera's flexibility and his ceiling may be a bit higher than Kiwior, but I like Kiwior, and I wouldn't mind to see him play. But I like what I've seen from this kid. Now I don't know, if language maybe will be an issue that causes Arteta, to pump the brakes on him. But I do think we have a player there, and Arsenal have made a lot of really good signings. Like, I know the top three. My top three favorites are Mosquera. I mean, not in order, but like Mosquera, Zubimendi, and Gyökeres, because I think they're going to give us depth in areas where we needed it. But Noni Madueke is not too far behind in terms of like the players behind the top two guys who are going straight into the starting 11 possibly. I think Madueke is much more clean on the ball and is much more prepared to play as a team player than what I was able to see in some of the times I watched Chelsea last season when he was playing. I think he was I think the word I used in the previous video was he was a bit trigger happy. But I liked what I saw from him. He's um, he's a very good athlete, and he gives us a really good shape and good balance with the way that he's able to be on his strong side on the left side, whereas like Saka comes in on the right hand side, and Ben White, because I saw him receive the ball a lot from deep positions, almost like a fullback, Noni. He was doing almost like Ben White things, but he was starting from a higher position, and I think that's influenced by the fact that we tend to, excuse me, have our left back cut into midfield, and so Martinelli is usually the one who's left out wide. And for so long, I've heard Arsenal fans see that as a problem, that Martinelli is isolated, and Martinelli is isolated and is not being given enough of a situation to play with an Odegaard or with a play with a Ben White. But maybe by design, that's what's supposed to happen in that position, and that maybe we needed a player who's comfortable doing that. And maybe that's the one thing I could say about the manager, maybe, is that he's taken too long sometimes to change something. Like, for example, the Kai Havertz at number 8 and playing Eddie for so many games up front, when Jesus was out. But eventually he finds a solution. So I'm not going to go too hard on Arteta for things like that. I think we've gotten really better. I like the pickup of Norgard. I think Kepa is also a great pickup at 5 mil. What, 5, 6 signings? 6 signings closed. Yeah. Like I really think this team is going to be better than the team that finished with 89 points 2 seasons ago. Whether we're going to get 89 points this season is going to depend obviously on the field, because like the big thing about the Premier League is that the other teams have gotten better. I hate to admit this, but like Manchester United are going to be a harder team to play against this year, because Amarim had most of the second half of last season to see what he needed to do, talk to the hierarchy at the club, support him, with buying 3 really good forwards. There's not a signing I hate in that front line that they've made. Belmo, Sesko, and Cunha. Those are really good forwards. I would have had them at Arsenal, any one of them, if I'm being honest, or maybe even 2. But the thing with Manchester United is, I don't know who they are on the ball yet. But by the sounds of it, they are not done with purchases. It looks like they want to go after Adam Wharton and the Baleba kid from Brighton. But it sounds like Brighton are going to dig their heels in to keep that kid. But Brighton are tough negotiators. If United do what they did with Sesko and throw quite a bit of money at it, Brighton might be prepared to have a conversation and trust themselves to find another player, because that's basically what they do. So yeah, I think people are going to overreact when Arsenal go to an Old Trafford, especially if they don't win. I think I can see a week of media coverage next week where the knives come out if Arsenal don't win there. I think so there'll be some Arsenal fans who will go hard at the club for not having done enough. I think there'll be people in the media who will talk big talk about Arteta 5-6 years or whatever. I can see the writings on the wall, and there's a lot of pressure on these things. But even in our best times, we've always struggled at Old Trafford. And this United team, I think, is going to be better than the team that they've had the last 2 years or so. Because I think Amorim is a decent enough coach to put a structure in place, and because it's the first game of the season and at home, you've known who your first opponent for a while. Like your entire preparation goes towards that. Now, I'm not saying Arsenal are going to lose the game or not win the game, but I do expect a harder game than than what a lot of people in the so-called football's banter culture are kind of speaking when they talk about this. I think there's an expectation, including from some of the big like personalities within the Arsenal fan base that have big followership on social media, on YouTube, whatever. There's a lot of people who expect big things this season, and I expect some good things, but like I think my level of like expectation is also tempered by the fact that everybody else is spending money, some of them more than what we've spent. I think Arsenal have spent on 6 players something around 200 mil or just under. Manchester United were supposedly broke, supposedly with financial issues. They've spent 85 on Sesko, not too far behind. I think 70 was the final figure from Belmore, and Cunha was in the 60s as well. And they're not done. And Baleba could cost 80 or 90 if they eventually get him from Brighton. Wharton won't be coming in cheap. So United, even them, they're spending. Tottenham are going to be good this year. I think Tottenham will be harder to play against because they have a very smart manager in Thomas Frank. I think he may have a harder time building a style of play on the ball, but like I saw him do it at Brighton. I'm sorry, at Brentford. So if he can do that at Brentford, Tottenham have better players, and he'll be able to do that. And especially if the news that I was seeing today that they're about to sign Savinho, if he asks City to release him. City are not looking to push the player to leave, but Tottenham are engaged in conversations with Manchester City to buy him, add Savinho to what's this guy on the right, Kudus, and then to Dominic Solanke. That's a healthy front three. And then on the bench you could have Richarlison, who I don't know what's happened with him. He's not as good of a player as he once was. Richarlison and the kid from Forest, Welsh kid, Brennan Johnson. That's a front 5 players that might have 1 or 2 more that I haven't even thought about. Oh, Kulusevski. So that's front 6 players, like, who can hurt teams, especially on the break, because Thomas Frank is very good at building transitional teams, as we saw at Brentford. But he's not a dumb coach, so they'll be good and they'll be harder to play against. Nottingham Forest, we saw last year, they look like they're going to be here to stay with big investment. They won their little thing. They're going to be in the Europa League instead of the Conference League. Palace will go down to the Conference League, another team that's going to be hard to play against. These are teams I don't even think are going to be in the top 4 that I'm talking about. Manchester United might be top 5, top 6, possibly. And then you have Newcastle, who had a hard summer, but like they already had a decent squad. They might be a bit better prepared to be able to integrate Champions League football in their schedule. The team I'm not sure about that did well, I mean, Brighton will be good, but I think another team that I'm not sure about that did really well is Bournemouth. Their coach is still good. They still have some good players in the middle to the front of the team, but they've lost 4 of their back 5 last season, right? Kepa was alone. He's now at Arsenal. They've lost the kid who went to Madrid, Dean Huijsen, and then they've lost Kerkers to Liverpool, and they've lost the kid who went to PSG. What's his name? Zabani. He's got a name that I can't remember the name, but I have his face in my head. Anyway, that kid is gone to PSG from Bournemouth, centre back. So 4 players out of their back 5, that was a decent back 5 too, by the way, are gone. So it's going to be interesting to see how they replace those players. But they have a good coach in Iraola, and they should be fine. I don't know if I've missed out on any big hitters. I do expect a lot of the the teams that are coming up, Sunderland, Leeds, all of them, I'm expecting them to struggle really. Even though Leeds have kept some of the front line players that they had when they were in the Premier League last time. But I don't know, man. Back forth like Joe Rodon, you have to find other players there. Um, yeah, I think Leeds were the best team in the championship. Burnley were a really good team in the championship, but I'm not sure if they have what it takes to stay up. So if any team stays up that came up, it's going to be Leeds. But I have a hard time seeing any of the teams that were in the Premier League last year finishing off worse than any of them three that just came up. I do think people will be surprised by how good this Arsenal team is. It seems like people were so quick to dismiss this team, and now in my opinion, have gotten better. They've gotten stronger in depth. I think we had depth, but we had 5 left backs. That doesn't count as depth to me. Now we have, trimmed that position. We have 2 players behind each, like a player behind each centre back, in Kivior and Mosquera, and you could even have Ben White as centre back depth or Timber as centre back depth. And then you have now Miles and Calafiori on the left back situation to come to fight it out. Most Arsenal fans will be happy to see either of those boys play on any given weekend against anybody. Same thing at right back. Same thing you can probably say at left wing. And most people, I know Gyökeres is the new shiny toy and will probably get a lot of starts. But I don't think most Arsenal fans will complain to see Kai Havertz start some games in the centre forward positions, and I expect that Kai Havertz will start a lot of games in the centre forward position, and that he will most likely play quite a lot of games with Gyökeres. I think I can see a situation where a lot of games they're starting together, whether it's twin strikers or Havertz in one of the positions behind the main striker. I don't want to say this because I'm afraid to see it happen. Maybe Havertz starts and Gyökeres in the middle and left, whichever way you want to see it. Now that's a bit crazy, but I could think of worse situations, i.e. having Mikel Merino start as a centre forward. I'd rather have that before I do that. I'd rather have Havertz or Gyökeres playing as one off centre forward and left wing, whichever way you want to slice it. So I think it's going to be a decent season. I just don't know if the pressure that people are putting on the team to win the league or win the Champions League this year. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people may be left disappointed if that's all they think success will be this year. I do hope that, obviously we can achieve those things, but I don't think with the margins for error being so narrow and everybody being so strong, I don't think it's a reasonable demand. You can maybe expect it, but more realistically, you can hope for it. That's my view anyway. I think, I hope for the best, and I think with good health, which again, we're not in control of that, but I think with good health, this team will be able to make a lot of people happy this year and maybe even the next. Anyway, I'm going to leave this one here. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Please share your comments and on anything that I'm saying on these videos. I am going to be recording more regularly now that I have kind of sorted out a few things in my personal life. But up you goodness.